Good morning. Welcome back to our fourth Anchored in the Word morning reflection. And yesterday we dealt with several facts, truths that we find in these verses, specifically that sin has a consequence and God uses the painful circumstances that come as a result of our sin to cause us to stop and to reflect and to draw us back to Himself. And so this morning, what I'd like to do is I'd like to further develop some of the truths that we find in these verses and see how they apply to helping develop wisdom in the miserable seasons of life. So let's go ahead, turn in our Bibles again to Psalm 39, and we'll read the first half of the psalm. It says the following: I said, I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle, while the wicked is before me. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace, even from good. And my sorrow was stirred. My heart was hot within me while I was musing. The fire burned. Then spake I with my tongue, Lord, make me to know mine end and the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. Behold, thou hast made my days as an handbreadth, and my age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity. Selah. Now, as we look at these verses, I'd like us to draw our attention back to the third of the truths that we find in these verses. The first was that there are painful consequences to sin. It always causes trouble and always causes misery. Two, the difficult circumstances, the pains of life, God uses to cause us to stop and to reflect and draw us to Himself. Now, three, our lives are short. In verses 5 and 6, he says, my age is as nothing before thee. Every man at his best state is altogether vanity. Surely every man walketh in a vain show. They are disquieted in vain. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who shall gather them. Fascinating statements. Even those who live to be very old and live in the light of human history and in the light of eternity, this is a very short period of time. Or even people who live lives that are very meaningful. They're strong, they're wise, they're ambitious, they impact their generation. The fact is that these people are often forgotten very quickly. And when they are remembered, sometimes they're misrepresented by later generations. How many generations from the past in American history, they're really not presented with a correct balance and perspective. They're not considered in the light of the times that they lived in. Some of the great national heroes are abominated by some people who don't look at them in the light of the time they lived in. And so even people who live very impactful lives are sometimes forgotten or they're despised because of the way they're presented. Even those who are strong and wise and deeply motivated, they may only be highly effective for a short portion of the life that they live. I mean, I think about my pastoral ministry experience. When I first started in ministry, there were so many things I got wrong, and I didn't handle them with a lot of wisdom or grace. And the fact is, it's a learning process for me as a pastor. Or think about when you're raising your children, how hard we are sometimes on our firstborn, and how many things we don't get right. And as we're raising our children, we learn as we go. The fact is that we're not born with wisdom. We're not born strong. We have to grow and mature and develop these things. And so we see that our lives are very short. Two more thoughts. Truth number 4, God cares about us even though our lives are short. So we could sit here and doom and gloom and say, well, I don't live a very long time, and even the time that I live, I don't live as wisely as I should, and I'm not as strong as I should be, and I'm not as effective over the whole course of my life. But God cares about us in spite of all that. That's something we should take great comfort in. Fifth truth is that a correct worldview doesn't insulate us from the deep discouragements, but it does give us the tools to see the redemptive value in these seasons. I mean, God called David a man after his own heart. He was a godly man. But David also experienced a lot of heartache. He made bad decisions. He created a lot of problems for himself. And so even though we may know the right thing, it doesn't mean we're going to live the right thing. And it doesn't mean that we're going to be insulated from all kinds of troubles. A sixth truth: our feelings are not necessarily a reflection of reality. His final words of Psalm 38 are, "Forsake me not, O Lord. Be not far from me." His final words in verse number 39, "Oh, spare me that I may recover strength before I go thence and be no more." Do those sound like positive statements? The answer is not so much. God, don't leave me. I think you are going to leave me. God, leave me. It's amazing you would say that. But then how does Psalm 40 open up? He says, "I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up out of an horrible pit and out of the miry clay, and he set my feet upon a rock and established my goings. He's put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many, O Lord my God, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done, and thy thoughts which are to usward, they cannot be reckoned up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak them, they're more than can be numbered." What's the point? The point is, even though David felt like God had abandoned him, and even though he told God, "Just leave me alone," he didn't realize he was just a short time away from saying, "I waited, he inclined, he brought me out of a horrible pit." In other words, how you feel right now may not be a good reflection of where you're really at and what's about to take place in your life. And how many times do we get all doom and gloom and we think about the very worst possible scenario in a situation and it never materializes? It does not unfold the way that we think it's going to. We've got to learn not to trust our feelings. And so what do we walk away with this morning? What we walk away with from these verses is that God uses our pain and suffering to accomplish good. Our lives are short, but it also reminds us that he cares about us despite the shortness of our lives. And sometimes we feel overwhelmed and in great misery, but guess what? God may be right at the beginning of removing those issues from us or bring us through those things that we experience triumph. And so let's not mope around living as if our feelings are reality. Let's embrace what is true and let's live in the light of Scripture. Have a blessed rest of your morning, and Lord willing, we'll meet again tomorrow. Bye now.